Find the Song series. I'm going to break down a tune we made for our album It's All a Bit Fuzzy called Standing My Ground. So I'm going to kick it off with the drums. I use the same live take drums in this one, but slightly edited and moved around as our song Energy. I like to do that when we're putting together an album so that all the drum sounds are sort of coming from the same world. So when you listen to the album, there's a little bit of continuity between songs. I found that was a cool vibe and a cool way to kind of like connect songs from one to the other. So the main drum groove is comprised of 3 different recordings of different mics on the drum. So you can hear here, snare bottom and a hi-hat. Something else. Those 3 tracks comprised of the same groove, building it up in there. I've got my trusty kick that I always use below live drums, because as I always say, I can never really get a live kick to hit as well as this particular kick, or just in general electronic kicks in tracks sound better to me when it comes to just providing the thud that I find pleasing. So that kick below the live drums, all of a sudden there's like a nice thick sort of thump there, and then I think Mark did just a general drum pass throughout the song to create a little bit of movement. A little bit of snare stuff, an additional kind of take and sound texture in there collectively all together, including the tom fill that we did and the claps. Also, very sick little trick that we found off of TikTok, actually, was Mark hitting the crash and me literally whirlwinding a microphone, like a cheap microphone going around. And if you listen to this crash, the is actually the microphone whipping past the cymbal. It's literally us holding the wire of the mic and just spinning it around like that. I saw someone, like a drummer on TikTok, doing that. I was like, that's kind of sick. But in amongst the drums, it actually kind of has a side chaining effect, where it's like creates this pump with the rest of the groove. Pretty cool. In terms of processing and stuff there, probably been fairly light. Probably a simple little EQ there on the kick. And the last part for the drums is just a shaker coming in over the end there, and some cowbell stuff that we had with a couple of different cowbells in the studio. And Mark and I kind of played them all weird and not really following any kind of groove, and put 2 tracks of it on top of one another. Everything sounds a little different, but it's moving around. It's in kind of an interesting groove that makes sense within its madness. One's stopping, one's starting, one's doing a double, one's missing a beat, whatever, but it all sounds kind of cool. This one's got a very fun bass line. Doesn't quit really, just goes hard throughout. People thought I ripped off Rick James for this one. I genuinely didn't rip off anyone. I just programmed a bass line on a synth because I can't play bass. I programmed the bass line that I wanted on the synthesizer, and then I went through and literally sampled every single note off the bass that I wanted. Cool little lead here that Mark played on our Moog, kind of like a square wave thing. So that and the bass line. And then for the chorus, we do a sort of little chord progression in there and add some other little bits and pieces and flourishes to sort of fill it out. There's little guitar riffs in there as well that Mark played and I sampled in. So without any of the vocals, the underlying track sounds a little bit like this. Adding in the guitars. And then the synths. Fair amount of reverb on that synth being sent via an OGS. Looks as if I've put this tape machine that I really like. I really like this one because I dial up the amount of color, and then I also the speed and stability of the tape. I'll make it wobbly, so it kind of almost detunes it in a cool way, but it's like wobbling in and out of, not out of tune, but wobbling in and around a pitch. There's something I find pleasing about that. That reverb creates a ton of depth that for a chorus moment definitely is useful. So once again, the underlying track is fairly simple, more or less just like a locked groove with a fun bass line and some necessary parts to make the elements or the moments within the song pop. Little chord change here in the breakdown. I love this chord. It reminds me of something that like LCD Sound System would do, but it sounds so cool. Love that chord. Okay, and then moving on, another example of working very hard on a vocal for this song. Mike and I will generally write a verse or come up with a chorus and write a verse and get it all down, and then from there we'll really produce it so that throughout the verse and throughout the chorus there's these little moments that you've got the underlying structure and kind of the foundation of the verse, and then you've got little sort of highlights and moments throughout. So here you can see that the verse sounds like this.
Maybe it's just the fleeting cloud.
I've got a particular reverb that I use for Mark, which is the convolution reverb that Max for Live put out. A friend of mine put me onto that like 10 years ago and I've never stopped using it. So the reverb is obviously static after it happens. I like the idea of putting a tremolo on the reverb so that it's like pulsing on an eighth, which kind of gives it that little pulsing sort of feel you can hear in the background there if you listen carefully.
Maybe it's just the fleeting cloud.
Here's that.
Maybe it's just the fleeting cloud.
Kind of sounds cool and out of this world. And then there's little moments where I'm running the vocal through our tape machine over there and getting these little like random bits that are happening. Which is, I mean, I love that stuff. It sounds so cool. It just spices up in amongst the mix here.
Maybe it's just the fleeting cloud, the heaven shatter, they cry aloud. It doesn't matter if you tap out, if you can't stop it, don't call it out.
And there's like little bits where like, you know, is either Mark singing that or I'm pitching that. Yeah, it looks like I'm pitching it down a fifth. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's not like I'm selecting that for any other reason other than just coming up with ideas quickly on the spot and trying them and then working and moving along. So these two tracks are just a simple double which stays on the whole time and is fairly straight ahead and in line, and then there's all these other things that are kind of subtly happening around that are like ear candy along the way.
Call it out, baby, I say I'm giving up. Every night I'm feeling stuck. I'm so frustrated, but what the fuck? The sun is coming up.
Same sort of thing here with the chorus. Pretty funny one, pretty percussive little vocal chorusy thing, broken into what is it, 4 or 5 different little bits. So he starts off with the oohs. Then let me guess, different form of oohs here, triple stacked, all of that. So it goes, and then there's a spoken word sort of part here.
It's coming, is it?
In the falsetto edition there for something interesting.
It's coming, is it?
Where he's singing a little bit higher. And then it looks like on this one there's even more.
I'm standing my ground.
So there's one that's like I'm standing my ground, and there's I'm standing my ground. So it's a mix of it being sung and spoken, but then all together.
It's coming, is it? I'm standing my ground.
Then with the beat. Also a cool little thing here is we did a vocal chord where Mark sings in basically a different note for each take. So recording 1. Altogether, it's like pretty cool little effect there, kind of Beatlesy. The last thing we came up with for this song was this kind of a whole bunch of nonsense that Mark did on a take that I chopped out into a thing that I really liked. So you can hear the whole take here of him just sort of like riffing out random bits and pieces here. So.
A problem is coming up. I stand in right here.
But then in amongst the beat, it's a pretty cool like vocal moment in live. I don't know whether Mark actually says anything or he just like leans into the effects on his vocal, but pretty cool. This is another example of a Neil Francis song that's pretty simple in terms of the way we've put it together. An efficient, sort of active, instrumental, couple of different sections and using synths and cheeky little effects and stuff along the way to make the vocal pop out. One of my favourite songs actually that we made off the last record. I kind of love the way that it came together very organically. I think I made the instrumental one night, Mark came in the next day, we riffed out most of the vocal ideas and it was a wrap from there. And it has that sort of cool disco meets punk feel that definitely shines through when we play it live. I love this tune. If you haven't already, give it a listen. One of my favourites.